I'm just not good with the ladies, like you said.
All right. Try this on her. Hi, I'm Paul. You have beautiful eyes.
Hi, I'm Paul, and you have beautiful eyes.
I'd love to take you out sometime.
Love to take you out sometime.
So how much?
So how much?
With a great taste that won't fill you up and never let you down. Make it a Bud Light.
All right, so the boxers. Why do they bother with the gloves? All right, guys, you got these trained athletes, boxers, and I don't know why. I think it's a little bit primal. It's fun to watch them fight. All right. I have a black belt in judo. I used to compete. I enjoy it. The boxing thing I wouldn't get into because it can destroy your brain. Being a physicist, I'm not into that. But these guys are like animals. I still remember I used to watch Tyson in 1980s when I was an undergraduate student, about your age, and I used to pay about $20 to $30 just to watch him pay per view. And you know, you're drinking with your buddies and all that stuff, and you pay $30, and then just before the match, you would just go to the bathroom, and then by the time you're back, it would be done with. That guy was an animal. He was that fast. All right, so supposedly there's going to be an exhibition match coming up, but supposedly this guy doesn't box anymore, right? So if I were to pick a fight by them, he could still take my face from 0 to 100 miles per hour within a single punch. This guy is that powerful. He's that good. He's that strong. Except if he's wearing gloves, I got a story to tell. And if he's not wearing gloves, who knows what happens? All right, so here's a question for you. Wearing gloves, does that change the impulse? All right, so what's the meaning of the question? Just wearing gloves, does that change the impulse? All right, so Jordan, you said no. Just tell me what that means. All right, so the impulse of him taking my face from 0 to 100 miles per hour, what does it mean? Which means that's impulse, right? Changing momentum is known as impulse. With a single punch, okay, the only thing that changes, impact changes. You're right, but impulse is not going to change. Impulse is changing momentum, changing motion, guys. With a glove, with or without a glove, my face is still going to be moving at 100 miles per hour. The only thing that's going to change is the duration of the impact is going to change. All right, so the duration of the impact changes. If he's wearing a glove, duration of the impact is going to go up. The impact time is going to go up. And the impact force is going to go down. All right, it's going to make it more survivable. It's going to make it more survivable. That's the reason why these guys wear gloves. Regardless, whether he's wearing a glove or not, the impulse is still going to be the same. It's going to be the same. Change of momentum is still going to be the same. My face is still going to go from 0 to 100 miles per hour, regardless. Except if he's wearing gloves, impulse is the same. Impact time is going to go up. Impact force is going to go down. All right, so that's what we discussed. That's the summary of what we discussed so far. It's known as the impulse momentum theorem. All right, we initially discussed that in the form of acceleration. If you're wearing gloves, what happens is going to increase the impact time, right? So if it increases the impact time, what happens is your acceleration is going to go. Acceleration is how fast you speed up, slow down, or change direction. How fast you go from an initial velocity to final velocity. All right, so this is your average acceleration formula. You increase the impact time, what happens is the acceleration is going to go down. Why is that important? It's important because we know what's survivable and what's not in terms of G loads. Know that you can survive between 7 to 12 Gs up to a few minutes, 20 to 25 Gs for a few seconds, 100 to 140 Gs for a fraction of a second. All right, that's it. All right, that's the way we were calibrating in terms of what was survivable and what wasn't. All right, now, and then we decided to do the transition into the concept of momentum. All right, so initially you increase the impact time however you can. If it's a car, you got a crumple zone. If these are boxers, they give them gloves. You increase the impact time in order to make the acceleration survivable. If these are boxers, you want to watch them box. All right. I mean, these guys are so well trained. Without the gloves, how long do you think that the match is going to last? If you're lucky, it's going to last a minute. And without gloves, more than likely, one guy is going to have a broken face. The other guy is going to have a broken hand. All right. So what breaks the amount of force required to break somebody's cheekbone is about the same force that's required to break somebody's hand, guys. These things don't last that long. All right. So the whole idea is you don't want any broken bones. You don't want anyone to get killed. But at the same time, you want to see a really good demonstration of an awesome fight from two athletes who are trained to fight. So the idea is to increase the impact time. You give them gloves, that's going to reduce the acceleration. It's going to be fun to watch. All right, so the acceleration is tough as the velocity changes in time. All right, so you go from an initial to a final velocity within a certain time period. So the next question is, what causes acceleration? What causes acceleration is a net external force acting on a system. It's otherwise known as Newton's second law. Do a substitution here. So express acceleration in terms of change in velocity. And then just get rid of t, so place t on the left-hand side. On the right-hand side, you got to change of motion. All right, this mass is undergoing change of motion, which means that its velocity is changing. And what's causing the velocity to change is the force acting on this mass for a duration. So here's the duration. Here's the force and its duration. That's it. What it does is going to change the velocity of this mass. All right, so combination of mass and velocity is known as momentum or motion. So force acting on a mass for a duration, a certain time period, is going to change its velocity, its motion, its momentum. That's what it means. All right, so P means momentum. All right, this combination of force and its duration is known as impulse. It's known as impulse. All right, so we end up getting a full definition of it. So force is a vector, which means it's got direction. Velocity is a vector, which means that it's got direction. And momentum is a vector, that means that it's got direction. So this is known as the impulse momentum theorem. So a simple concept that we've been using forever, average acceleration in this case, and we applied it to impact. So you want the impact survival by increasing the impact time. Then we mentioned that what causes acceleration is the second law. The force is what causes it. And then we express the force by means of its duration. And then what happens is obviously force acting on something is going to change motion, it's going to change momentum. All right, so combination of mass and velocity is going to be your momentum. So momentum is going to change. So this gives you the change in momentum. That's it. All right, so in terms of getting hit in the face by Tyson, your face is still going to go from 0 to 100 miles per hour, guys, to the mass of your face. Impulse is going to be the same regardless. The only thing that wearing a glove does is it's going to increase the impact time. It's going to reduce the impact force. It's going to reduce the impact force in the form of G load. Right. Impulse is going to be a combination of force and its duration. So I is going to be impulse. You got the F is the force, delta T is the time, period or duration. Right, so force is what causes mass to accelerate, do a back substitution. Acceleration here is the average acceleration, do a back substitution. T is the same as delta T. All right, so get rid of the like terms. So during impulse, what happens? The velocity of this mass changes, which means that motion changes. Momentum is the same as motion. So impulse changes the momentum. That's it. Impulse is a combination of average force and its duration. So this is going to represent the average force. Duration is the time. So we'll just string out everything related to impulse in the form of a single formula. And then, so this is what we get. All right, so definition of impulse is force and the duration of that force. What it does is going to change the momentum, which means that it's going to change the velocity of that mass. All right, so here's the formula from the formula sheet. Everything looks the same except delta T becomes T. And you got the definition of momentum at the bottom. That's a mass moving at a given velocity. All right, so let's do a fast lecture review. Impulse, what's impulse? It's a combination of force and its duration. And what it does is going to change the momentum. Momentum is mass moving at a given velocity. So why do we end up using the average force in the impulse calculation? How come this is an average force? Yes, impulse is impact. What do you think is happening during impact? If there's any sort of impact just like that, what do you think is happening? Let me tell you what's happening. Acceleration is changing. All right, so you end up getting a variable acceleration, otherwise known as jerk. If there's jerking motion, what do? We use the average acceleration formula, right? Because we want an estimate. What causes average acceleration is the average force. It's the reason why we end up using the average force in impulse calculations. This implies that the force keeps changing. And if the force keeps changing, you end up using the average values. If the acceleration keeps changing, likewise, we end up using the average values. So what happens to the momentum during impulse? Perhaps the momentum during impulse is it changes. She's good. Yeah, can you grab her? What happens is the momentum changes, which means that the motion is going to change, which means that the velocity is going to change. So what happens to force is the duration of impulse is short. If you reduce the duration of impulse force is going to go up. Because impulse is changing motion. Motion is going to change the same amount regardless. The only thing you get to control is the impact time. Literally, the only thing you can control is the impact time. How do you control the impact time? Wear gloves. Make sure that your car has a crumple zone. Don't drive an indestructible car. All right. The only thing you control here in impact is the impact time. So if you make the impact time really short, the force is going to be extremely large. If you make the impact time really long, the force is going to be small. All right. So by controlling the impact time, you can manage the force. Force becomes manageable. All right. So the unit for momentum, mass is going to be kilograms. Speed is going to be meters per second. Impulse force is going to be in terms of newtons. Time is going to be in terms of seconds. All right, guys. Impulse change in momentum, you will have the same units. Either you can use those units or you can use these units. All right.
Troy's plan is to enter a grizzly's den and extract a blood sample from a sleeping bear, and the grizzly-proof suit is the only way he can do it.
You can't get close to a grizzly. It'll kill you. If you haven't got a protective means like I do, you're dead.
Troy recognized the need to get close to the grizzly early in his research.
My first year of college, I watched a preview of RoboCop. I said I could build one of these, and this is my research vehicle.
Reaching this stage of development was a long, difficult, and painful journey. He named the fursuit, created in 1985, the Ursus Mark I, after the grizzly zoological classification, Ursus arctos horribilis.
The first suit was simple hockey, baseball, lacrosse. I had 12 different sporting equipment because that's the only amount of money I had, and that was the best plastics they had. Well, that was thrown away in an hour. I mean, a simple half swing with a baseball bat break your arm.
3 years and 4 suits later, Troy creates the Ursus Mark V, constructed of more durable equipment like ski boots and motorcycle gear. Troy's tests grow more intense to replicate a grizzly's phenomenal strength. The trials border on the lethal. Troy's research assistants use wooden bats to test the strength of the suit's outer shell. Swings to the face test the durability of the headgear. Troy is shaken, but not injured. He decides to increase the force. Troy still isn't satisfied, so the punishment continues. A 150-pound sandbag, swung from a height of 25 feet, strikes Troy directly in the face. The blow levels him, but does no harm. Troy believes this suit is ready to face a full-grown bear. A 3-ton truck moving at 25 miles per hour.
If you can handle that truck at 50 kilometers an hour, I have no problem with anything a grizzly bear can do.
To be sure, Troy increases the speed to 30 miles per hour. After this test, Troy concludes that the suit needs improvements. Troy's research assistants use wooden bats to test the strength of the suit's outer shell.
Can't hear you, Tina.
Perfect. Thank you. All right, so he ends up building newer and newer versions of the suit in order to increase the impact time, right? The cost is going to be the same. That's the change of momentum, right? Whole idea is to increase the impact time in order to reduce the impact force.